No matter how dark things seem to be, or how desperate it seems, there is something you should know. Let the love of God still flows. God answers prayer. You need to know He's always there. When you stand in faith and pray, believing, trusting God and you start receiving, to know how much He cares. God answers, oh God answers, God answers prayer.
Jeremiah 33:3 says, "Call unto me, and I will answer thee, and I will show thee great and mighty things thou knowest not."
Join us now to hear great and mighty things that have happened in the lives of people who have been changed through our Lord Jesus as they share their testimonies of how God answers prayer.
Welcome to God Answers Prayer. I'm Linda Cobb, your host today, and we are excited about what we're going to be hearing and talking about today. There's some disagreements, I might say, out there in the world about certain issues, about whether or not the creation story is the real story, whether evolution, and we've seen things change considerably over the years in the schools, what's being taught, and how do we deal with that? And especially as believers, how do we deal with it and bring truth into a situation, because both sides say they have the truth. But we also know that the Word tells us that you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. So we have with us today Pat Roy, who is the director of Genesis Apologetics and Debunking Evolution. So we'll be talking about that more. And just want to let you know, here at Sun Broadcasting, we're getting ready for our big move. And so we are having a garage sale, and we have a Facebook page, the Sun Broadcasting Facebook page, that you can go to find out more information as to the dates, the times, and perhaps even some of the things that are going to be there available. There's furniture, there's books, there's all kinds of things we have to get rid of in order to move into our new location. And for those of you that are helping out with Gideon's Army, thank you very much. We need more of you to join up with that so that we can get that new studio built and get in there and get going with everything that the Lord has for us in the days ahead. So there you go. It's Join the Gideon's Army, building the future through Sun Broadcasting. And you can go to our website, sunbroadcasting.org, and click on Donate and be a part of Gideon's Army. We've been asking for people at $1,000 each, or if you want to divide that $1,000 up between several people, you can do that, and there you see that. You can gather together with your family and friends and make a difference. 2 of you at $500 each, maybe 4 at $250, 8 at $125, or even 20 at $50 each. All of it is important. We need to be able, we have in this new building spaces, but there's no studio there. So we have to build in a studio. We're excited about the new building and being able to all be under one roof, but we need your help. So thank you for joining with us as we enter this season, and we've already entered it. We're in the midst of it, I guess you could say, but He's taking us into dimensions that we've never ever even thought about, didn't even expect, and we know that it's because He has something special for the state of New Mexico and for those of you that are viewing. So be encouraged today, and thank you for your continued prayers. We have a scripture that's found in Colossians chapter 1, verses 16 and 17, and it says, "For by Him all things were created that are in heaven and that are on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions. All things were created through Him and for Him, and He is above all things, and in Him all things consist." Again, we are going to be talking with Pat Roy. We have a special message, and then we'll be back with Pat.
Let the fire of the Holy One burn in me. Hi, I'm Mike Baca. You may recognize me from the Bolo Boys. I'm also the director and studio engineer here at Channel 11. And my family and I have been involved with Channel 11 for over 30 years. And you know, some of the equipment that we're using now is the same equipment we've had the whole time, and it's in dire need of upgrade. I know that Channel 11 is fertile ground for you to plant your seed. Many people have come to the saving knowledge of Jesus Christ through this ministry. And Proverbs 11:30 says, "The fruit of the righteous is a tree of life, and they that winneth souls are wise."
Sun Broadcasting, changing one life at a time. In the book of Judges, we see that God was preparing Gideon for battle against overwhelming odds. God handpicked Gideon's army, 300 men whose most distinguishing characteristic was not improving themselves as mighty men of valor, but that they drank water from a position different from the others. Gideon's example proves to us that through the faithfulness of a few, many can be delivered and become conquerors.
At Sun Broadcasting, we are in a position to move from the old to the new, and we need 300 faithful men and women to be a part of our army. Our goal is $300,000 for the remodel of the new studio and new production equipment. Be a part of Gideon's Army, which is building and fortifying Sun Broadcasting and ensuring God's Word goes forth in power throughout New Mexico.
Everyone can be a part of Gideon's Army. Call now 345-1991 or go to sunbroadcasting.org and click Donate. Gideon's Army, building a strong New Mexico for Jesus.
Thank you again for those of you that have already signed up to be a part of Gideon's Army. And I'm thanking you for those of you that are praying about it right now and that are responding to what you hear to do. We are delighted to have Pat Roy with us today, and welcome to God Answers Prayer.
Linda, thanks for having me. I sure
It's
appreciate
good to
it.
have you with us. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and I mentioned the whole thing about debunking evolution, but tell us how did you get into this? How did your journey with all this begin?
Well, for me, it began clear back when I was a young man. I started working at the Institute for Creation Research about 25 years ago as the director of broadcast media there. I thought my passion was media, but I really learned that my passion was the creation message. I've never seen a message that has the power to change lives like the creation message. So I worked at the Institute for Creation Research, and eventually my wife Sandy and I created a new broadcast, a radio drama called Jonathan Park, and that's actually aired internationally all around the world, and that's just been a very fun journey. And then this last year I joined up with Genesis Apologetics. And Genesis Apologetics is a new creation organization, and we're committed to reaching students and teaching them that the scientific evidence is actually in harmony with God's Word. And so we spend a lot of the time debunking evolution. We want students to realize that they can just trust God's Word. And a lot of students in the public school classroom are just intimidated by the teachers. A lot of them come in and say, hey, listen, evolution is true. There is no need for a God. And statistics show that more than half of students, more than half of them will reject their faith as a direct result of what they learn in those classes.
Wow. So, your journey as a believer, why creationism? I know for most of us coming into our walk with the Lord, that's just seems like a given that we would believe that. But why get involved with all of this?
Oh, that's a great question. Can I answer you with Scripture?
Yes, you bet.
Okay, awesome. Listen, I think all the time, am I into the creation thing just because this is my hobby, this is my passion? But then I go to Romans 1, and this is just a great Scripture. Romans 1:18. For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who hold the truth in unrighteousness, because that which may be known of God is manifest in them, for God has showed it to them. For the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. So, Linda, this is telling us that all around is the evidence of the Creator. And so they suppress the truth, and in righteousness they deny the Creator. And so it says that the things that are made show that he is who he claims to be. And then it goes on and says, because that when they knew God, they glorified him not as God, neither were they thankful, but became vain in their imaginations, and their foolish hearts were darkened. Professing themselves to be wise, they became fools, and changed the glory of uncorruptible God into an image made like corruptible man, into birds and four-footed beasts and creeping things. Wherefore God also gave them up to uncleanliness through the lusts of their own hearts, to dishonor their own bodies between themselves, who changed the truth of God into a lie, and worshipped and served the creature more than the Creator, who is blessed forever. Amen. And you know, Linda, that's what we see in our society right now, is that it started off by denying the Creator. They suppressed the truth. Now, that's really an interesting scripture. Does that mean that deep, deep down inside, everybody knows that there's a God? How do they work with the DNA and see this amazing code? How do they look at the incredible balance of nature? How do they see the animals and how well they're designed, or our solar system and how we're sitting at exactly the right place? How do they look at all that and then turn around and deny the Creator? Well, it's right there in Romans. And then because of that, once they deny the Creator, then they begin to worship the creation.
Right.
Boy, don't we see that happening right now? Boy, in the headlines right now, the young man who fell into the ape enclosure, right, in the Cincinnati Zoo, and then everybody's asking whose life was more valuable, the young man's or the ape, right? How did we get there? Well, it's because we're worshiping the creation instead of the Creator. And so when you ask me why creation, why is this so important, I think this is really foundational to everything. I think once we deny the Creator, I think then a society gets into big trouble. And I think what we see in the headlines today comes right out of Romans chapter 1.
You know, you talk to people, evolutionists or people that have somehow been convinced. I wonder how much convincing. I mean, because there's not a real, from what I can see, a real argument about it. It doesn't seem like it's based in enough facts. It's based in science, which is inexact. But, you know, when you do talk to people, they think, well, you know, if you're a Christian and you believe in this whole Genesis story, then you're just showing your ignorance. What do you say to that?
Well, yeah, exactly. That's the argument all the time. As a matter of fact, they usually pit it as being science against religion, right? But if God is the God who made the world, and He's also the one who wrote the Word, those two are in total harmony with one another, right? And so what's exciting is once you just accept what God says, we can go out and investigate and see that science is in total harmony with that. I don't think most people realize that there are hundreds and hundreds of PhD scientists, many of them who used to be evolutionists teaching on a university somewhere, who finally saw the light and actually switched over and became creationists. I think a lot of times evolutionists mock creationists and they act like they're all Sunday school teachers that are playing scientists, right? But there's actual PhD scientists out there who have looked at the evidence and come away saying, listen, evolution just does not make sense from a scientific standpoint. And creation does. I mean, design points to a designer.
You know, it's interesting because you're saying this, and I'm sitting here thinking, I don't know that I had really quite connected the two, but evolution and environmentalism are just right there together, aren't they?
Well, they really are, because think about this. If we believe that man is at the pinnacle of evolution, that we're at the top, who is the one who's supposed to take care of the earth? Who's the one who's supposed to save the earth? We hear that all the time, right? We're supposed to save the earth. Well, really, from a creationist perspective, just like you read from Colossians, God created all things. He created the earth, He created people, and then He made us the stewards of that. We're supposed to be good stewards, but at the same time, it's God who takes care of the earth, not humans.
Very good. Well, now, in trying to reach students, and you know, that when kids go off to school, the professors have got a lot of influence, even sometimes more than parents, especially if parents haven't really done their work ahead of time, or that their children don't come home to discuss things. Because it's kind of a situation where in the classroom it's not open for discussion, and so it's not open for you to discuss at home either. But, so how are you, what are you doing now to help students with this?
No, I'm glad you brought that up, because I've been talking to a lot of high schoolers lately, because that's really who we're trying to reach. And it's true, a lot of times the professor comes in and they almost have a godlike power, and they come in and speak with such authority, and the students stay quiet, right? So they hear all this evolutionary information, and usually around college, many of them start to doubt their faith, right? So here's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to equip the students to realize what the real science says about it. And then, like you mentioned too, a lot of times the parents aren't in tune with that, right? The kids come home from high school. How was your day at school? Fine.
It's okay.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah.
And so parents don't get involved with that. So listen, we're really encouraging parents to get involved, to find out what their students are learning, and to equip them. So what we did was we took all of the textbooks that are being used in California, and we analyzed all the evolutionary teaching that's being taught in those textbooks, and then we set out to debunk those 12. And then once we debunked them, we wrote a book that we've got here. We debunked that in the book, and then we also put together a student guide. But then we said, well, you know, probably students aren't going to read a book, right?
Right.
So we said, we've got to reach them on YouTube. So we've put together 12 episodes, and those 12 episodes, each one of them actually debunks one of the 12. So now what our goal is to get that information out to parents, let them know that this exists. They can go to debunkevolution.com. The 12 videos are right there. You can watch them for free. It doesn't cost anything.
Yeah.
You can also download the book, the student guide. We also have online classes, and all of that is free because we want to equip parents to be able to teach their students. We also want to equip students so they have answers in the classroom.
And the truth of the matter is, I mean, this generation of parents were taught the same thing.
Exactly.
It's been going on for a long time.
Exactly.
So now you've got a interview that took place on the CSU campus, right?
Yes, absolutely. You know, the statistic is out there that more than half of students will reject their faith by the time they're done with college. I have heard that statistic so many times. I hate that statistic.
Yeah.
But I wanted to know if it was true, so we took a camera and a microphone out to Chico State University, CSU Chico in California.
Okay.
And we just asked students what they thought. Did they trust evolution more or creation? And I ended up talking to a lot of Christian students, or at least Christian students that were raised in a Christian home. And we got to hear what they had to say.
Let's hear that.
Okay, so when it comes to creation versus evolution, which would you say that you believe the most?
That's actually a really good question because I'm at a point in my life where I was raised in like a Christian family and church and stuff, and raised to be essentially a creationist, the traditional Christian family. But the more that I go on my studies, the more I lose faith in what I previously held in. So I want to go as far as saying I'm a atheist now, but I am losing more and more faith in my previously held creationist beliefs.
Cool. Were you guys raised in a Christian home?
Yes, we were.
Yes, I was.
Yes, definitely.
I was, actually.
Yeah, that's true.
So I went to church for up until around like 8 years old.
Yes.
So when it comes to the whole creation evolution debate, which would you say that you believe the most?
Definitely creation.
Evolution.
Well, I'm actually a biology student, so I have to kind of believe in the evolution part.
I would believe in evolution the most.
I believe in evolution. I'm more of a science guy.
To me, evolution makes sense because of the education that I've gotten growing up. But traditionally, as a family, I've been raised to believe in creation.
Evolution, 100%.
Evolution.
And what convinced you that evolution was true? What was the most convincing thing for you?
Just science, everything that I've learned in school.
Just what school has taught me, I kind of believe that. I believe the universe was created as the Bible said, and then my personal belief is that the creators stepped back and let evolution take place.
Well, I'm a computer scientist, so I kind of really believe in science, and so yeah, it's the evidence.
I think a lot of people these days want to base their knowings and beliefs off of something, physical evidence.
Just seeing the evolution in bones and with apes and to humans, just seeing that whole evolutionary change.
Basically, the teachings in public schools, what I was brought up learning, what I've looked up on the internet. It's actually a big passion of mine to kind of spread the word, and I believe people shouldn't live in ignorance, and that's what I think creationism is.
Wow.
Yeah, that was an amazing time.
I felt my nose and my eyes start to sting when the young man said, I'm an atheist, basically.
Right. Matter of fact, I need to point out that everybody that was on that video claimed that they were raised in a Christian home. And I usually ask them, well, did you go to church on a regular basis? A lot of them had. I said, did you go to Sunday school? A lot of them said yes to that as well. And so it's important to keep in mind that those were former Christians that were answering those questions. And to me, it really made me begin to realize, wow, we need to get out there and just reach these students. It was also sad for me. It kind of confirmed the statistic that I've heard, that most of the students are rejecting their faith by the time they're done with college.
You know, and one of them stated about all of the evidence in science, and yet, you know, that's just in a book that's been written by people. I mean, if you really wanted to, and I'm sure that's what happens here in the debunking evolution, because there's a lot of stuff that's being put out that's not truth.
Well, absolutely, that's very true. And you know, what's interesting is with these students, I would often ask them, I would say, about how long did it take for you to be in class before you realized that there probably was not a God? Most of them said to about 3 to 6 months was what it took.
Wow.
And then I said, what was the most convincing evidence that you have for me that they gave you in class? So you didn't see this on the interviews. I turned off the cameras because I couldn't have these conversations with the kids and then just say, goodbye, good luck. I had to actually stop and talk with them. So off camera, I would ask them, what was the most convincing thing that they convinced you there wasn't a God? And most of them would say, I'm not sure. And I would say, wait a minute. You just told me that in class they convinced you that evolution was true and that there was no God, and you can't give me a specific reason? And most of them said, yeah, I guess that's true. I hadn't thought of it that way before. Next question I would ask them, hey, if I could give you evidence that God's word is true and that creation is true and evolution is not, would you be interested in hearing that? Every one of them, all of them, said yes. And so I sat there and I would give them scientific evidence to show that evolution wasn't true. Now that first young man, boy, that one got me. Every time I see this, this video, I pray for that young man. Basically, he said, I feel like my creationist teachings have failed me. And it was almost like he still wanted to be a Christian, but he realized that factually he had to be an atheist, right? I spent 45 minutes with that young man just talking to him about all the evidence against evolution and for creation. And then he went to class, and when he was done with class, we were still out there videoing, so he came back and talked to me for about another half hour. And I'm just praying that that young man will return back to his faith again.
Right. And, you know, there's also a lot of peer pressure.
There is. You know, when you're in that classroom and your professor, especially in college, but in fact, I'm finding out more and more as I talk to students, it's almost like the God's not dead concept, is that I'm finding out that there's a lot of professors out there that basically start the class. And I remember this happened to me when I was in a class as well, is the professor said, how many of you are Christians? And we actually had to raise our hands. And he said, by the end of the semester, you'll no longer be raising your hand. I've heard that from a lot of students. Well, that's intimidating when you've got a PhD professor in front of the class who's taking on Christianity. And usually what happens is the students are quiet. So there's nobody to oppose him. And so one of the things I think that we're going to start taking on later on as school begins this next year is a Just Ask Questions campaign, where we teach students how they can ask questions politely and as a Christian. And the other thing I'm finding as I'm interviewing these young people is once one person asks a question, then the rest of the class feels free to ask questions. And it can change the whole dynamics of the classroom just by one student asking something like, how did non-living materials become alive? And then when they see that the professor doesn't have an answer for that, it makes the other students go, wow, maybe he doesn't know everything after all. So,
you know, the professors have been trained themselves by others. I mean, it's been a generational thing now. But literally, they come into the classroom and set themselves up as God.
Yes, exactly. Now, we need to point out that there are some good Christian professors out there, and there are some really good, honest professors. Matter of fact, probably most of them are honestly trying to teach what they think is true, but a lot of times I think they're just very intimidating, whether it's on purpose or just by the fact that it's a PhD that's standing up in front of it, in front of the class, or in high school, you know. It's not usually the big, overwhelming professor, but it is a teacher. It's somebody that they trust as being somebody who's going to tell them the truth.
That's right.
Matter of fact, Linda, that's a lot of times what happens is that they go to school 5 days a week and learn how the world really works, and then they go to Sunday school for 40 minutes and they see the picture of Noah's Ark with the little animals floating on it. And what's a kid going to do after years and years of that?
Science really belongs to creationism.
Absolutely.
So we're going to be back right after this to talk more about that.
In the book of Judges, we see that God was preparing Gideon for battle against overwhelming odds. God handpicked Gideon's army, 300 men whose most distinguishing characteristic was not improving themselves as mighty men of valor, but that they drank water from a position different from the others. Gideon's example proves to us that through the faithfulness of a few, many can be delivered and become conquerors.
At Sun Broadcasting, we are in a position to move from the old to the new, and we need 300 faithful men and women to be a part of our army. Our goal is $300,000 for the remodel of the new studio and new production equipment. Be a part of Gideon's Army, which is building and fortifying Sun Broadcasting and ensuring God's Word goes forth in power throughout New Mexico.
Everyone can be a part of Gideon's Army. Call now 345-1991 or go to sunbroadcasting.org and click Donate. Gideon's Army, building a strong New Mexico for Jesus.
Well, thank you again for your support and your prayer support, especially during this time as we are making this transition from the building here in Santa Fe down to Albuquerque. We're excited about that, and I know a lot of you are too, so thank you for joining up with us and helping to make this happen. Well, we're talking with Pat Roy, and we've been talking about creationism versus evolution, and Pat, you were on the campus there talking to people, and you recently made national news. Tell us a little bit about that.
Oh yes, we ordered 120,000 wristbands to advertise the website that has the 12 different videos. Well, we paid a considerable amount of money to have these made, and as it turns out, the CEO of the company that made these was an evolutionist, and he felt horrible that he had helped the creationists.
Right.
So he turned around and donated $4,000 of the money to an organization committed to evolution. But you know what's fun about that is I love how the Lord works, because at Genesis Apologetics, when we first heard that news, we went, oh no, our money went to somebody who's going to promote evolution. And so we were really bummed out about it. But I love how God works, because he's turned around now, and we've been able to use that as a way to leverage ourselves into talking on several different radio and TV networks. And so literally thousands of people have now ordered the wristbands and gotten them out. And so I love the way God always takes something that you think is something that's going to be bad and turns it around for something good.
And, the Word tells us that, when the enemy comes in, I mean, there's a repayment that takes place. So
right. Well, it just shows you that God is in control of all things, and he's always working behind the scenes, right?
Right.
So we as Christians a lot of times go, oh no, that was horrible, and God always says, well, watch what I'm going to do with that. And
so before we went to the message, I made the statement that science really belongs in creation.
Absolutely.
And, earlier you had mentioned DNA. I mean, the DNA, if that is not evidence of a creator, I don't know what is. Tell us about that.
Well, it's amazing. We've got this complex code that is just so amazing that man is still trying to understand it, right? And not only have we found out that we've got the genetic code, but in the last few years we've learned that there's another code controlling that code called the epigenetic code. Okay, so there's epigenes controlling the genes, and so it's even more complicated than we thought. And so think about what an evolutionist is saying. They're saying that through mutations, which usually lose information, natural selection, which can only choose from what's already there, that evolution took a simple organism, that first organism, and somehow it began to replicate. They're not quite sure how all that happened, and that has continued to build the human genome over millions and millions of years. Well, think what they're saying is a process that loses or scrambles information, and one that can only choose from what's already there, was able to create a code that's so complicated that man is still trying to understand it. And when you think about that, that's just amazing. It goes back to the Romans 1 thing, where they see this amazing code, and yet they deny the creator who made it. So the other thing that's kind of funny, I always think about this, my friend Ken Ham talks about this. SETI, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, they've got their telescopes trained up to the heavens, and they're just waiting for any kind of a code, right? If one time they were sitting there and they heard, they would go, intelligence! And yet they look at the code in their microscopes that's so amazing, and they go random chance. Intelligence, amazing code, random chance. It's just it's amazing when you think about what they've got to deny that there is a creator.
And if they could actually hear the frequency of the code in the genetics.
Right. Well, they're beginning to study it, and more. Matter of fact, I just even earlier on the station today, I noticed that somebody was talking about how scientists are continuing to map the human genome and map all the different genome. Well, it's so complicated that it's taking our best computers and our best minds to try and understand it. And yet they want to say that a non-intelligent, non-thinking process is what created that code in the first place. It just is beyond believability, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, for people, you know, I think one of the things too is that they try to say, well, we descended from apes. Look how similar we are.
Right. Well, it's very interesting when you look at that. Many times they've tried to say that the ape genetics and human genetics are very similar, but the thing they don't tell you is that we're also similar to a lot of other things as well.
Right, right.
And so listen, as we're understanding genetics, we're realizing that just a few changes can make a huge difference in what something is. And so it comes back again to your foundational belief is, did we evolve from animals? Are we just higher animals? Or people aren't even saying that anymore. Maybe we're just evolved animals, right? Children are being taught that in school all the time. But what does God's word say is that we were actually made in his image. We're not animals. We were given dominion over the animals. We're much different than the animals. And yet one of the lies of evolution is trying to tell us that human life isn't that valuable, that we're not made in the image of God, that a boy and an ape may have equal value. And so that's really where we're at in our nation right now.
Right. So what can parents do to help their students?
Well, listen, I think the first thing is you need to check in with your kids. You need to find out what they're learning in school. And don't just be satisfied with the, how was your day? Fine. Actually ask some questions. Find out what they're being taught. The other thing is learn the facts yourself.
Yeah.
You know what I do at dinner all the time, or when I'm out with my girls, or that, I share the evidence with them so that they know that. Matter of fact, not only is it scientifically accurate, but it's also historically accurate, and archaeology also confirms it.
Yes.
You know what I love to do with my girls when I'm having a Bible time with them is I like to read the book of Joshua and actually talk about the archaeological sites that are behind that and how the Jericho at the wall fell down. And, you know, the site at Jericho has all been excavated and all the facts fit with, with the scriptures. And so I think we need to stop teaching the Bible as stories and start teaching it as a real account that took place. The other thing they can do is we've designed this course specifically so parents or students can come and watch the videos. The videos are only 8 to 12 minutes long, and they go through all 12 tenets of evolution that are taught in textbooks. And so if you go to debunkevolution.com, and you can download the study guide and the book, watch the videos. I think that's just a really great way for students to become equipped, and that's also a tool that we hope will be a blessing to parents as they teach their students.
Absolutely. And don't just start with your college students. You need to start.
Yes, right away.
Right away.
All the way up, you need to be teaching them about creation.
Because we've all seen, you know, the movies or the videos where a student stands up and challenges the professor, and of course a lot of, you know, I've heard some people say, oh, that, you know, that doesn't hold any water, but the truth of the matter is, it's truth.
Yes,
so
exactly. And again, you can ask some very key questions that a teacher doesn't know how to answer.
And we actually have a feature.
That's right. We put together a promo to get people excited about our website, and I call it the Creationist Dream. It's actually a young lady who does stand up and ask some questions. She doesn't stand up, but she takes a stand for her faith and asks some questions.
Great. Let's watch that.
I know that the last 2 weeks that we've been talking about evolution has been really tough for some of you. I understand that some of you are raised in families that don't believe in evolution for religious reasons. But in my class, I try to teach you to think for yourself. Are there any questions? No questions? Kayla, you've been unusually quiet. You always have challenges for me.
No, that's okay.
But I know there's a God. I felt him. You can't explain my entire faith away with just a couple of chapters from a science book.
Mark, feelings can be compelling, but also very misleading. Now, I don't mind if you have faith in your God, but science doesn't require faith. It requires evidence. Anyone else?
Well, it seems to me that that's just what's missing from the whole idea of evolution.
What's missing?
Evidence. Evidence is missing. It just seems that it takes much more faith to believe in evolution than to believe in a designer.
Do you have any examples?
Well, how about when the textbook talks about the law of biogenesis, how life cannot come from non-life, but then in the next chapter it talks about how all life sprung from non-living material. And then it talks about mutation and natural selection and how it can change one animal into another, but mutation only loses information and natural selection can only choose from what's there. So how does a simple living organism turn into something like us? I mean, you have to think about like the complexity of the human eye and how we could never design something like that, or how the human body can heal itself. I just don't understand how some half-pound insect-eating shrew that somehow dodged whatever killed the dinosaurs could evolve from ape to ape-man over millions of unseen years, and then poof, you have humans. If evolution were true, we'd have millions of in-between creatures running around everywhere, right? And all of the in-between fossils could fit in the back of my Prius. And you know what else? I just don't understand how all of this started. I mean, you say that science doesn't rely on faith, but evolution requires faith. Faith that everything just burst out of nothing, that gas clouds collapsed and turned into stars, and all this stuff just collided around the sun to create planets, including Earth, that is just the right distance away from the sun to sustain life. It requires faith to believe that living organisms, created male and female, crawled out of the water and then magically became land-dwelling animals, which then became humans, all without intelligence or design. I just think it takes a lot more faith to believe in evolution than it does to believe that all the design, marvelous design around us points to a designer. And now I'm just rambling, so does anyone else have a question?
Stand strong in your faith. Visit debunkevolution.com.
Great video.
Thank you. That was so much fun to put together.
Yeah.
The guys who shot that did such a great job.
Wow. And people, I mean, I've seen, I think, did I see it on Facebook?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, that's where, so people, I mean, can share that. I know I was sharing it, so.
Yes, exactly. If you go to the Genesis Apologetics Facebook, it's right there and you can share it. And I'll tell you, as soon as we published that, we had instant response from thousands of people. We had a lot of Christians going, yeah! And then we had hundreds and hundreds of evolutionists that just did not like the message.
Yeah.
And I think the reason why is because we were showing that their scientific faith, their belief is actually faith. And that's really what it comes down to. I don't think people think about that often. Matter of fact, the media and everybody else always tries to frame this argument as science versus religion.
Yeah.
And it's really not. It's science versus science and also religion versus religion, because both positions are actually religious. They both have to believe things in faith. And just like she pointed out, they have to believe things like gas clouds collapse down into stars, and they have to believe that nothing became everything. They have to believe a lot of things. They have to believe that non-living materials became alive. That's all things they believe in faith. And so religion is defined by Merriam-Webster as being a belief about the origins and purpose of the universe. And so evolution is actually a faith, and I would go as far as to say it's a faith that a lot of times are based on blind facts. There's no evidence for a lot of what they have to believe, and when you confront them with that, they don't get too happy about that. It's very.
I mean, even cartoons that are being put out there are exposing little kids to the very things that you're talking about.
Exactly. That's true. It's true. We're surrounded by it, right? In the classroom, movies, books, everywhere. It's almost like evolution is assumed to be true, and so people they don't want to be stupid, and so they want to believe it just so they're not dumb, right? And yet, you know what's funny is a lot of times I'll meet evolutionists, and I'll say to them, and these aren't the scientists, but these are just people who believe in evolution, who are angry that I'm a creationist, and I'll say, well, tell me how evolution works. And they'll say, well, what do you mean? I'll say, well, what's the mechanism? How does one animal change into another? You know, most people will say, I'm not sure about that. And I'll say, well, that's interesting that you've based your whole eternal destination and you can't even tell me what you think makes evolution work. So it's really kind of an interesting thing.
Yeah. So what can churches actually do to help?
Well, I think churches, if they would like, Genesis Apologetics is willing to come out and make a presentation. Well, I've been out here in Santa Fe and Albuquerque. I've been able to go to a couple different churches, and it's just been so much fun. We don't charge an honorarium. We just want to get out there and just let people know about the information. The other thing that churches can do is youth directors. Boy, you need to get in on this program because, you know, I used to be a youth director myself, and you invest all this time into your students, and how frustrating that half of them are going to reject their faith later in life. So listen, I just want to encourage youth directors. This is an issue that matters.
Right.
This is an important issue. Matter of fact, that's the battle we have a lot of times, is that youth directors, you know, they understand that Jesus Christ and the message of the cross, that is important.
Sure.
I mean, that is the gospel, but also important is why there's sin in the world, the fall that took place. Deciding who the Creator is, if He's the God of the Bible, if He's the one who created all things, those are equally important, that we need to teach those things so that by the time we get to the cross of Christ, students understand that. And boy, just the other day I was in a coffee shop with the youth director, and I was talking to him about this whole thing because I wanted to get his input. And he said to me, he said, well, I just don't feel like what you're doing is that important. So listen, I think there's a real battle here. So if you're a youth director in a church or you know a youth director, please get a hold of us. Just go to Debunk Evolution and let us know, and we'll get the materials to you, or you can download them right there. We've got the wristbands that youth directors, if you're interested in that, we'll send those to you. We don't charge you anything for the wristbands. We don't charge you for shipping. You can order a few hundred if you want to give out to your students, but I would just encourage people in the church to really see this as an important issue and really make sure that you're equipping students.
Great. We've got another message we want to share with you, and then we're going to be back with more.
In the book of Judges, we see that God was preparing Gideon for battle against overwhelming odds. God handpicked Gideon's army, 300 men whose most distinguishing characteristic was not improving themselves as mighty men of valor, but that they drank water from a position different from the others. Gideon's example proves to us that through the faithfulness of a few, many can be delivered and become conquerors.
At Sun Broadcasting, we are in a position to move from the old to the new, and we need 300 faithful men and women to be a part of our army. Our goal is $300,000 for the remodel of the new studio and new production equipment. Be a part of Gideon's Army, which is building and fortifying Sun Broadcasting and ensuring God's Word goes forth in power throughout New Mexico.
Everyone can be a part of Gideon's Army. Call now 345-1991 or go to sunbroadcasting.org and click Donate. Gideon's Army, building a strong New Mexico for Jesus.
Thank you for being a part of Gideon's Army and helping us as we make this big move. And we've been talking here, and you know, one of the things that I was thinking about, Pat, was that to me, what I'm hearing a little bit is that, and this is probably controversial to say this, but it's like we've separated the Bible right there in the middle between Malachi and Matthew, and we've majored on Matthew through Revelation.
Exactly.
And we really haven't, we've cherry-picked the other part.
Exactly.
We really haven't tried to learn it in its wholeness. And, you know, I mean, for me, one of the big things was returning to the Torah and beginning to really study it on a yearly cycle. And when you do that, it's all of a sudden things begin to just come alive to you. And you search it out. You search not only, yes, you search the science, you search what other people's comments are. It all comes together to help you to understand in a greater way. So I just want to say to you, thank you for what you're doing, because it's been lost.
Yeah, and I think you're right. You know, a lot of times in the church we're in the New Testament. Well, the New Testament is awesome. It's got great things to say, but wow, with missing that Old Testament.
It's all commentary on what's in the Old.
Right, it's amazing how the two, and obviously God's written the whole thing. I mean, it's inspiration of God all the way through, right? But it's amazing how from beginning to the end of the story, God has got this amazing journey that he's had mankind on.
Right.
And when you understand this part of it, all of a sudden, so many things here make sense. So I agree with you, absolutely.
And so would you say that maybe we need to revisit the way that our young people and our youth, our children, have been being instructed, because there's been such a change in the way people learn, the things that challenge them. Like, it's not the felt boards anymore so much.
Right, exactly. A lot of it is social media, a lot of it is the videos, and that's why we produce the videos. But Linda, as a youth director, now this is just my opinion, I wouldn't even say this is an official Genesis Apologetics position, but when I used to be a youth director, the thing that I learned was that if you could have a relationship with the students, and again, I think the most important relationship is the parents and the student. The parents are really the ones that are ultimately responsible for training their kids. But I think anytime you can get a kid into the scriptures and help them to understand what their purpose is in life, I think that that's what gets students the most excited, is when they find out that they've got purpose. Matter of fact, this goes back to kind of a creation evolution thing too, is think about what we're teaching students in class is that they evolved. It was random chance processes. They're just molecules that happen to come together. And ultimately, if they think that through and that they're evolved animals, what that ultimately means is that they have no purpose in life. That's really the ultimate end of that thinking. But think about what you can teach a student from the scriptures is that, no, God foreknew you before the creation of the world.
Right.
He already knew who you were going to be. He knows every molecule inside you. He knows all the hairs on your head. He knows all of the quirks, sub-quirks, everything about you, right?
Yeah.
He already knows all of that, and he has a plan and purpose for your life.
Yes.
And its ultimate purpose, right? It's to join Jesus Christ and God in their mission. It's for you to be a part of that, right? Think about the difference between those two students. The one who knows that they've got ultimate purpose by the God who created the universe, who has a mission for them, or a kid who believes that they're random chance molecules that came together by accident. How are those two lives going to play themselves out? And so listen, I think you're right. I think as churches, as parents, I think we need to be teaching our students that God made you. He gave you specific talents. He gave all of us talents, right? And what joy to use those talents for God, right? And that you've got to use those things, your life, you've got to invest it for Him.
So listening to what you just said, have you noticed when you've been talking to a lot of these students, has there been a sense of hopelessness?
Yeah, I think I find that a lot. Many years ago, I used to go out to the high school campuses down in San Diego. And if this was the line of the campus, I used to stand right here. And I used to take an 8-man magazine, like Time magazine, they would put an 8-man, and I'd go, hey, is this your relative? Did you evolve from this? And instantly, I'd have a bunch of kids around me because they wanted to talk about this stuff. That's one thing I find, is that people want to talk about this stuff. So instantly, I'd have this group around, and I would ask, how many of you believe that you evolved? Here's what I saw. There's a few kids loud and proud. And I'd say, how many of you believe that you were created with a purpose? Here's what I saw, is most of the kids raising their hands and looking at their feet. Even the non-Christian kids were raising their hands. Now, the ones that believed in evolution, I would ask them, I would say, listen, if evolution is true and there is no God, and this is all just the result of the Big Bang and all of that, what purpose do you have in life? Oh, I'm going to get a good job. I'm going to get a good... That's great. But what's your purpose in life? Well, what do you mean, what's my purpose? I go, look, if evolution's true and you're just going to reproduce someday and generations will go on, what is your actual purpose in life? And they would say, I guess ultimately just, be happy while I'm here. And I used to look at those kids and go, wow, that's so sad, because just like you asked, I think a lot of them, when they think it through, they realize that there ultimately isn't purpose in life. And so we try and fill it with video games and doing all kinds of fun stuff, and later on having a great job and all that stuff. But what does any of that matter by the time you're at the end line, right? None of that matters if evolution is true, right? It doesn't matter.
So much more than just about survival.
Exactly.
Well, I know that you've got a clip of one of your YouTube videos.
Yeah, I thought we would actually watch an episode so you get a feel of what our episodes
look
like. So this particular one is about whale evolution.
Okay, great.
Is it just me, or does a 100-pound wolf-like creature turning into a 360,000-pound blue whale seem a little hard to believe?
Who's got you covered?
Oh, you got burgers. Oh, man, I love you.
Yeah, well, I figured that since we're going to be studying anyways.
Oh, yeah, pretty much. All right, let's see what you got here. We got the old macaroni fries. We got some burgers. Silverware? For burgers?
I don't know. The girl who was giving all this stuff out was like a zombie.
So, you know what's going to be on this test, right?
Yeah, whale evolution. Can you imagine what it would take for a wolf-like creature to turn into a whale? The little tail would have to turn into a gigantic fluke, and the forelimbs would have to turn into flippers.
They would need to evolve a brand new respiratory system. I mean, that's not easy. And then they would have to evolve a blowhole. And then their teeth would have to evolve into baleen. And that's not all.
Wow, there are way too many changes that would have to be made.
Including growing several hundred times bigger.
Yeah, like Aunt Madge during Christmas.
Yeah, so we're gonna have to study. I mean, if we don't, this test is gonna be an epic fail.
Hey, you know what I'm thinking?
That we're really living on a snowflake in Whoville.
No. But cramming all these facts into our heads makes me feel like we're some sort of contestants on Jeopardy.
Welcome to Evolutionary Jeopardy, the game where you never know how things will turn out. Jane, pick your category.
I'm gonna go for whale of a tail for 500.
Okay, this category focuses on different animals that supposedly evolved into modern whales. From the high school biology textbook, we see the first animal believed to begin evolving into whales. It says, Masonic kids are one hypothesized link between modern whales and certain hoofed animals.
Oh, what is the imagined category of animals that includes sheep, camels, pigs, cows, deer, and wolves, thought to be the possible ancestors of whales?
That is correct!
Wait, the entire evolutionary ancestry of whales is based on an imaginary creature?
Yeah.
That's true. Jane?
Okay, let's see here. Oh, I know. I'm gonna go with Howling for the Sea for 1,000.
Your biology textbook also shows a diagram of a whale evolving. It depicts the next creature in the lineup, which was discovered in the 1980s. They only discovered partial fragments of the wolf-like skull, and since they didn't have the rest of the body, they imagined that it was an intermediate between a land animal and a whale. And textbooks included illustrations of it swimming in the ocean. But then more fossils were discovered, showing it to be nothing more than a land animal. Yet it still appears in your textbook as an ancestor of the whale. Yes, Jane.
Oh, there was a fly on my buzzer.
Sorry, that was not stated as a question. John.
What is Pachycetus?
Correct! Your pick, John.
Same category.
It's time for the Daily Double. If you answer this right, John, you'll get double the amount. There are only 2 fossils ever found of this next creature on your chart. In your biology textbook, it says the limb structure of this creature called walking whale suggests that these animals could both swim in shallow water and walk on land. However, it appears to be nothing more than a land animal. In other words, it was defined as a walking whale. Not because it had a whale's tail or flippers or a blowhole, but simply because they believed it to be. In fact, they didn't even find the part of the skull that would have a blowhole. But they still add a blowhole in museum drawings. And since it was a land animal with 4 legs, it was then called a walking whale.
What is Ambulocetus?
You are correct!
Wow, that's some serious circular reasoning.
John.
I'll go with whale of a tail for 3,000.
This creature is often depicted in museum and textbooks with a tail fluke. However, they never found the fossil bones for their tail. Also, this creature was often portrayed with front flippers until they found fossils to show it actually had front legs.
What is Rhodocetus?
Correct!
Hallelujah.
Hey, I think this is my thought bubble.
Who cares?
Moving on. This creature seems to be nothing more than an extinct sea creature. What appears to be leftover legs from evolution actually turns out to be claspers used during mating season. This is true in many current species of whales.
What is Basilosaurus?
Yes! Last one. This creature appears to be nothing more than an extinct whale. John.
What is Durodon?
Excellent! And the last two remaining names, Mestacetes and Odontocetes, are just modern whales, baleen and tooth whales, respectively. Well, John, it looks like you've won! You've won our grand prize. It's a...
New car?
No, a cold hamburger.
What? A cold hamburger?
Cold hamburger, John. A cold hamburger.
Hamburger John. John. Hello? John. Your burger's getting cold.
What's up with the silverware? Your perfectionism kicking in again?
Well, that's just a taste of some of the YouTube videos, and thank you so much for coming and sharing this with us today.
It's been great being here with you.
And
Thank you so
again,
much.
they can find out more by going to the website.
Yeah, exactly. Debunkevolution.com. You can watch the end of that video if you would like. You can also watch the other 11 that we've produced. So I just
Okay.
want to encourage parents and students to go there.
Right,
Thank you.
and Facebook for those that...
Yeah, Facebook at Genesis Apologetics if you go to our Facebook. And then also our website is genesisapologetics.com.
Great. Well, this is a very worthy thing that you're doing, and, you know, to be able to give people hope, and like we've talked about, in a purpose, Jeremiah 29:11.
Exactly.
You know, everybody has a plan. I mean, there's a plan and a purpose because we were created in His image for a reason. And so be encouraged, but also parents, get involved. Get involved with your children. Talk to them and begin to train. You know, it's not just about enjoying them and just letting someone else teach. We must begin to do this. We have to do it in the home to equip them for what lies outside. I have some prayer requests that I wanted to share with you and some praise report. This one person called in, Kay, that said that there's been closure now with the passing of their dad, and that's so important to be able to have that, to be able to move on with their lives, and so we rejoice with this one. Prayer request, Ruth has digestive problems, Josie trouble with eardrums and therefore her balance, and also this is the month of weddings, so we want to pray for marriages. And Abba Father, we come before you today. We thank you for the praise report. We thank you for your faithfulness, and we thank you that you are faithful to those that are dealing with situations, whether it's the eardrums and the balance or digestive problems, those that may have lost loved ones. Father, we thank you that you have brought comfort, that you will bring that word in due season that will bring release. And Abba, we thank you that you are the great physician. You are Yahweh Rophe. You are the one who can touch each one of them, body, mind, and spirit. In Yeshua's name, amen. Thank you for joining us.